Danny Koker's show, Counting Cars, once had it all, from roaring engines to jaw-dropping customs and a team that felt like family. But behind the scenes, things weren't always what they seemed. And not every team member stayed in the picture. One by one, familiar faces vanished from the show with no explanation or farewell. Some walked away quietly. Others were pushed away, and a few left behind rumors that never quite disappeared. What really went down inside Kustoms when the cameras stopped rolling? And why did some team members walk away at the height of the show's success? Was it pressure, betrayal, or something else entirely? The truth would definitely change how you view Counting Cars forever. The rise of Danny Koker and Counting Cars was a story of ambition and passion. Every organization has its ups and downs, but for Danny Koker and Counting Cars, the stakes were higher. Because when your empire runs on custom builds and loyal employees, even a small crack can send everything crumbling down. Danny Koker has always been extra careful when it comes to challenges and tensions in his garage. Because Kustoms isn't just any business, it's his lifelong dream. And long before he became the face of one of cable television's most successful reality shows, Danny Koker was just a kid with a dream and passion for restoring cars, upgrading them, and giving them attitude. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, and raised in Detroit, Michigan, Koker's early years were deeply influenced by the city that gave birth to America's automotive industry. Detroit wasn't just the place he lived, it was part of his DNA. And unlike most kids, Danny didn't have to wait for adulthood to start working on cars. His father, Danny Koker, Sr., wasn't just a musician, he was also a car enthusiast. The elder Koker performed with legendary groups like the Cathedral Quartet and the Rexhead Family Singers. But when he was home, he spent countless hours in the garage with his son. That garage became Danny's first classroom. And by the time he was a teenager, Danny was already fixing cars and giving them a new story. But Danny Koker didn't stop at car culture. In the early 1990s, he started building a local following in Las Vegas as Count Cool Rider, a late-night horror movie host on a small TV station. Clad in leather, sunglasses, and a signature bandana, he introduced B-movies with a rock and roll flair that stood out. It was campy and fun, but most importantly, it gave Danny a platform and experience with television. When he eventually launched his own garage, Kustoms, it was never meant to be just an empire. In fact, Danny started the garage for practical reasons. He needed a place where he wouldn't have to wait in line to get work done on his own rides. But what began as a small custom garage tucked away in an industrial stretch of Las Vegas slowly became something much bigger. Danny's style of classic restorations with a rebellious twist immediately drew attention. Together with his team, he turned everyday vehicles into works of art, and soon, word spread quickly about Kustoms. Then came the break that changed everything. In the late 2000s, porn stars exploded onto the History Channel. The show was set in Las Vegas and featured the Harrison family running the gold and silver pawn shop, and Danny Koker was brought in regularly as a car and motorcycle expert. Viewers immediately noticed his edge, humor, and credibility. And every time he walked into the shop, fans wanted more. The producers noticed, too. And in 2012, Counting Cars debuted as a spin-off series. It focused entirely on Danny, Kustoms, and the wild custom builds rolling in and out of his garage. The show wasn't just about restoring classic cars, it was about loyalty, vision, and the people behind the machines. Each episode showed a different project, from a beat-up Mustang turned into a showpiece to a Harley-Davidson reimagined with flames and chrome. But at the center of it all was the passionate and perfectionist Danny, who was always pushing for something better. Audiences connected with the show immediately, and by its third season, Counting Cars had become one of the History Channel's highest-rated shows. Its success wasn't just in the drama or the custom jobs, it was in the authenticity. This wasn't scripted chaos or fake tension. These were real mechanics, real builds, and real stakes. Danny Koker himself didn't slow down. Outside of the show, his personal car collection grew to more than 100 vehicles, each one restored with the same obsessive care he demanded in his shop. He launched multiple business ventures that carried his signature rock and roll flair. He opened Count's Vamped Rock Bar, which became a hotspot for live music and classic car enthusiasts. He started Count's Tattoo Company to tap into Vegas's body art culture. He even fronted a band, Count 77, blending his love of music with his impeccable stage presence. But with all that success came pressure, especially as the expectations inside Kustoms became higher than ever. The team Danny built had to keep up with a global audience, tight deadlines, and multi-million-dollar projects. The stakes were no longer just about finishing a car on time, they were about protecting the brand. And not everyone could handle it. Over the years, Counting Cars gained a reputation not just for custom builds but for sudden employee exits, bitter fallouts, and a revolving door of employees who just couldn't live up to the standard Danny set. Some of these employees were fired, while others disappeared without any official notice, and the fans definitely noticed. Who are the names Danny Koker has quietly distanced himself from over the years? And who are the employees who didn't make the cut? Behind-the-scenes tension and drama were inevitable. For fans watching at home, Counting Cars always felt like the perfect blend of passion and horsepower. You had classic rides, custom rebuilds, and a tight-knit crew who looked like they were just a bunch of friends doing what they loved. But if you peeled back the curtain, you'd discover things were very different behind the scenes. There was pressure, creative strain, and personalities that didn't always mesh. Because the bigger the show got, the harder it became to keep everything running smoothly. And unfortunately, not everyone was built for it. One of the reasons for the tension at Counting Cars was the reality of production. While each episode of the show might only run 30 minutes on screen, the projects themselves were anything but short-term. These were real cars with real issues, and every build had to meet Danny Koker's exacting standards. That meant months of labor, disassembling frames, custom welding, reupholstering interiors, hunting down rare parts, and painting everything to perfection. Unlike other reality shows that bend the truth for fast results, Counting Cars made it a point to stay honest to the work. That was their code, and what you saw on screen was a compressed version of reality, but not a scripted fantasy. The builds were always legitimate, the repairs were authentic, and the pressure to get them done was overwhelming. Still, television isn't built on just the hard work of transforming cars, it's built on tension. And the production team behind Counting Cars knew it. While the work in the garage was real, the way it was edited often turned minor disagreements into major blow-ups. Conversations were spliced, deadlines were emphasized, long days were made to look like last-minute scrambles. And over time, that kind of spotlight began to create cracks. Inside Kustoms, Danny ran a tight ship. He was obsessed with quality. Every vehicle that left his shop carried his name, his reputation, and often a six-figure price tag. That meant no shortcuts, no half measures, and no room for laziness. Employees who didn't match his level of commitment were either pushed to step up or pushed out completely. That kind of intensity can make or break a team. And as the show grew, so did the pressure. Fame only added fuel to the fire. What started as a family-style operation suddenly became a global brand. Millions of viewers were watching. Tourists started showing up at the garage. Fans wanted autographs. Customers wanted impossible timelines. And the employees? Some handled the attention with humility, while others just couldn't. There were egos, rivalries, and moments when the tension in the shop had nothing to do with the cars and everything to do with personalities clashing. Some workers began to feel like TV stars, while others resented the ones who hogged the screen time. The same guys who once joked around during oil changes were now being mic'd up, monitored, and occasionally misrepresented on national TV. That kind of environment changes people, and for some of the team, it wasn't for the better. Behind the camera, Kustoms also had to deal with legal and financial headaches that began to surface as the show progressed. When you're restoring high-value vehicles for wealthy clients, often under tight deadlines and public scrutiny, mistakes could get expensive. And for Kustoms, there were disputes over estimates, delays in delivery, and disagreements about modifications, and some of that ended up in court. While most of those issues were settled quietly, some cases became public, leaving a dent in the reputation of Danny Koker and his business. For Danny, this was more than frustrating, it was a reminder that success sometimes came with legal strings attached. By the time the show reached its peak, the tension had built into something heavier. Some employees started missing work. Others made bad financial decisions. And one in particular ended up in a legal battle with Danny Koker. Joseph Frontier's embezzlement scandal. Every workplace has its quiet employees, the ones who stay in the background, don't make much noise, and rarely end up in front of the camera. But sometimes, it's the ones you least expect who end up causing the biggest damage. On Counting Cars, that person was Joseph Frontier. While most viewers probably didn't even remember his face, Frontier wasn't just another crew member. He wasn't welding frames or airbrushing flames, he was handling something far more sensitive, the money. Frontier was hired as the company's bookkeeper and was brought in to manage payroll, track expenses, and make sure Kustoms stayed financially healthy behind the scenes. In a business that revolved around high-end custom builds and multi-thousand-dollar budgets, his role was crucial. But in 2016, that quiet accountant suddenly became the center of a very loud controversy. Court documents revealed that Danny Koker's shop, Kustoms, had filed a lawsuit against Joseph Frontier, accusing him of stealing more than $75,000 from the business. And this wasn't just a case of rounding errors or minor overspending. The claims were specific, detailed, and serious. According to the lawsuit, Frontier had allegedly used the company's funds to cover personal expenses, including a hefty down payment on a Range Rover and multiple airline tickets for private travel. What made the allegations even worse was that he didn't just take money, he reportedly tried to cover it up. The lawsuit accused him of forging Danny's signature on several documents and misrepresenting financial records in a way that made the theft harder to detect. For a company that prided itself on trust, loyalty, and blue-collar values, this was a gut punch. Kustoms wasn't just a garage, it was a family. Or at least that's how Danny and his crew saw it. And for someone in a position of responsibility to betray that trust so blatantly wasn't just unprofessional, it was personal. But Danny didn't just point fingers at the bookkeeper. The lawsuit also named the staffing agency that placed Frontier in the role, Randstad USA. The claim was that the agency had failed to properly vet Frontier or disclose issues from his previous employment history. Essentially, Kustoms alleged that Randstad sent them a ticking time bomb and then washed their hands of it. The lawsuit made headlines, especially among fans of the show. Viewers were shocked. While Counting Cars had always shown a bit of shop tension and the occasional personality clash, no one expected an embezzlement scandal to hit the crew. It was the kind of drama that didn't need editing to feel intense. And yet, if you watch the show carefully, Frontier's exit was handled with almost eerie silence. There was no on-camera confrontation, no explanation from Danny, and no final goodbye. He simply disappeared from the series without a trace. The show kept moving forward, the builds continued, and the audience was left to put the pieces together based on court filings and media reports. What made it all even stranger was how effectively Frontier vanished from public view. Unlike some former cast members who later popped up on social media or in interviews, Joseph Frontier went completely off the grid. It was as if he'd erased himself entirely after the lawsuit came to light. Whether that was by design or just a reflection of the legal mess he was caught in, no one can say for sure. As for the legal case itself, the public documents indicate that the dispute eventually moved through the court system, but many of the final details remain sealed or unresolved in the public eye. Kustoms took the matter seriously, but Danny Koker never made a public statement about the incident, and that silence speaks volumes. For a man known for his big personality and love of storytelling, Danny's choice to stay quiet about Frontier might have been his way of drawing a line. Maybe he didn't want to give the scandal more oxygen. Or maybe, for someone so deeply committed to loyalty, the betrayal just cut too deep to talk about. But what's certain is this: Joseph Frontier's actions left a permanent scar on Kustoms. It wasn't just about the stolen money, it was about the violation of trust. And for Danny Koker, who built his entire brand around respect, passion, and craftsmanship, that kind of wound doesn't heal easily. But Frontier wasn't the only departure that raised eyebrows. While his story was the most legally explosive, there were others who exited the shop under cloudier circumstances. Some had clashed with Danny, while others couldn't adapt to the new fame. But perhaps one of the most shocking employee exits of the show came from a man who fans loved for his gruff voice and no-nonsense attitude. He was an original member of the crew, a guy who seemed to live and breathe the garage life. But somewhere along the line, something changed, and his exit left just as many questions as it did silence. Scott Jones's abrupt departure. In the early seasons of Counting Cars, Scott Jones was the guy who kept everything in line. While Danny Koker was the heart and soul of the shop, and the rest of the crew focused on turning wrenches and spraying paint, Scott was the one tracking budgets, enforcing timelines, and sometimes saying no. In a garage full of artists, Scott was the enforcer. As the shop manager and bookkeeper during Counting Cars' first 2 seasons, Scott didn't win fans over with a warm personality or flashy style. He was blunt, numbers-focused, and clearly more interested in protecting the bottom line than entertaining the audience. That made him polarizing. But in a business where custom cars could cost tens of thousands to build and deadlines were always looming, his presence was essential, at least at first. What made Scott's role so tense was his frequent on-air clashes with Danny. While Danny often made emotional, gut-driven decisions, approving expensive parts or greenlighting spontaneous redesigns, Scott was the guy constantly pulling him back to reality. Viewers saw it again and again, Scott warning that a project was over budget or behind schedule, and Danny pushing back, sometimes hard. It was real friction, and it didn't always make for easy chemistry on set. But then, without much warning, Scott was gone. After season 2, he disappeared from the show entirely. There was no send-off, no formal explanation on camera, and no emotional goodbye, just silence. And as expected, the fans began asking questions, and rumors started to swirl. Some rumors speculated that Scott had been caught mismanaging money or even embezzling from the business. But unlike the case with Joseph Frontier, no charges were ever filed. There's no public lawsuit, no police report, and no official accusation linking Scott to any kind of criminal activity. From a legal standpoint, his departure was clean. The only explanation ever offered was that Scott moved to Tennessee to be closer to his family. And to his credit, that's exactly where he landed. Today, Scott Jones runs Koker's Extreme Automotive in Rock Mountain, Tennessee, a high-performance shop specializing in custom builds, restoration, and repair. In recent years, he even resurfaced on Netflix's Swap Shop, a reality show about treasure hunters and collectors in small-town America. Despite the speculation, Scott has never spoken publicly about his time on Counting Cars, nor has Danny commented on the real reasons behind Scott's departure. Whether the behind-the-scenes tension simply became too much, or whether there were deeper financial disagreements, remains unknown. What's clear is that after 2 intense seasons, both men seemed ready to part ways, and neither looked back. But if Scott's departure felt abrupt, the next one was even more puzzling. Because unlike Scott, the next name wasn't a manager or a money man. He was a fan favorite known for his accent, his jokes, and his unstoppable energy. Then one day, he just vanished. Rolly Sabo. If you watched even a few episodes of Counting Cars, you probably remember Rolly Sabo. Nicknamed Rock and Rolly, he wasn't just the shop's detailer, he was the comic relief. With his thick Hungarian accent, oversized personality, and infectious laugh, Rolly stood out in every scene. Whether he was polishing chrome, vacuuming interiors, or cracking jokes with Kevin and Danny, Rolly was the kind of guy who made the garage feel like a party. But behind the humor was real talent. As the lead detailer, Rolly was the one responsible for making every finished vehicle look perfect before it went back to the client or in front of the camera. Smudges, fingerprints, and dust never stood a chance under his watch. He took his job seriously, and Danny frequently praised his work. Fans loved him, and his popularity grew with every season. But that's why his disappearance was even more confusing. Rolly appeared regularly from season 2 through season 6. Then, just like that, he was gone. There was no explanation, farewell scene, or mention from the rest of the crew. And as always, the silence only fed the rumors. Some said Rolly had a falling out with other staff members. Others whispered that he had been fired after clashing with production or arriving late one too many times. The most alarming theory came in 2017 when reports surfaced that Rolly's trailer, containing thousands of dollars worth of detailing tools and equipment, had been stolen. The theft was real and confirmed by local Las Vegas news outlets. Rolly posted briefly on social media about the incident, clearly frustrated and heartbroken. But after that, radio silence. What's interesting is that no legal drama followed. There were no charges filed against Rolly, no lawsuits or public complaints from Danny or the team. It seems more likely that if there was a conflict, it was internal, and it stayed that way. Some fans believe Rolly chose to walk away after the theft, tired of the grind and ready to start something of his own. And that's exactly what he did. Rolly Sabo started his own business, Rock and Rolly Custom Detailing, a mobile detailing service based in Las Vegas. He may not be on TV anymore, but he still works on cars, and by all accounts, he does it well. His business has a loyal following, and his reputation for meticulous work has stayed intact. Like many others who left Counting Cars, Rolly has kept quiet about the real reason behind his exit. But up next is a name whose exit left fans of the show deeply concerned. Shannon E. Cow. Of all the team members on Counting Cars, Shannon E. Cow might have been the most underrated. He was calm, focused, and deeply skilled. He wasn't the loudest guy in the garage, but when it came to custom motorcycle builds, he was the best. As Count's Customs lead bike builder, Shannon helped shape some of the show's most memorable two-wheel transformations, and his craftsmanship spoke for itself. In the earlier seasons, Shannon was a steady presence. Whenever Danny wanted something bold, intricate, or completely out of the ordinary, Shannon delivered. His builds weren't just technically impressive, they had personality. Whether it was a chopper with vintage flair or a sleek modern beast built for speed, Shannon's work carried a signature blend of precision and artistry. But around season 7, fans started to notice something odd. Shannon was showing up less and less. He wasn't in the group shots. He wasn't giving updates on builds. His once regular scenes had been reduced to quick cameos or background glimpses. And just like that, he faded from the spotlight. But what exactly happened? Well, unlike other cast members who were involved in scandals or lawsuits, Shannon's disappearance didn't come with any public controversy. There were no legal issues, feuds, or news stories. In fact, the most consistent rumor surrounding his exit was that he had developed a quiet shift in focus that didn't really align with Counting Cars anymore. Some insiders have speculated that Shannon simply didn't mesh with the direction the show began to take in later seasons. As Counting Cars leaned more into high-drama edits, custom hot rods, and celebrity builds, Shannon's world of quiet, detailed motorcycle craftsmanship may have felt sidelined. Other rumors have suggested creative differences. Shannon may have wanted more freedom in how his builds were presented, while producers focused on creating TV-friendly narratives. Whatever the reason, he didn't make a fuss. He just stepped away from the cameras. But stepping away from the show didn't mean stepping away from the work. Shannon Ekau remains active in the Las Vegas custom scene, still building bikes, still perfecting his craft. He's occasionally spotted at motorcycle events and trade shows, and his name still carries respect in the custom community. He doesn't court publicity, and has never bashed the show or the shop. And that silence, in a way, speaks volumes. For fans who admired Shannon's steady presence and masterful builds, his quiet exit was disappointing. But unlike others who left under clouds of drama, Shannon's legacy remains clean, respected, and intact. And now, from the most low-key member of the shop, we turn to the exact opposite, a guy whose personality was as bold as his paint jobs and who became one of the most recognizable faces of Counting Cars. Mike Henry. If Counting Cars had a rock star, it was Mike Henry. With his trademark horned helmet, neon-colored mohawks, and high-energy vibe, Mike brought something wild to the garage that no one else could replicate. But he wasn't just there for laughs. As the show's lead airbrush artist, Mike had a rare combination of outrageous creativity and real technical skill. From fire-breathing skulls to surreal sci-fi landscapes, Mike's paintwork turned cars, bikes, and even helmets into moving pieces of art. Fans loved him for his style, his sense of humor, and his genuine passion for pushing the limits of custom design. But that passion often came with friction. While Danny Koker valued Mike's talent, there were more than a few moments, both on camera and behind the scenes, where their visions clashed. Mike liked to experiment, break rules, and make bold statements. Danny, on the other hand, while open to creativity, still had to protect the brand, meet deadlines, and make sure the customers were satisfied. And unfortunately, that tension sometimes bubbled over. There were also reports of Mike struggling with the show's production demands. In interviews and social media comments, Mike has hinted at the stress of working under tight schedules, trying to complete intricate designs while also filming scenes and accommodating producers' requests. He's never been openly hostile about it, but you can read between the lines. The pressure to be both a full-time artist and a reality TV personality took its toll. Over the years, Mike's screen time started to decrease. He still popped up in episodes, but not as frequently as he did in the show's early days. Some fans speculated that he had been pushed out. Others believed he had chosen to scale back. Mike eventually shifted his focus toward his own brand, Horny Mike Designs. Based in Las Vegas, the business has grown into a full-blown operation, offering custom airbrushed gear, motorcycle helmets, and unique creations that look like they belong in a gallery more than a garage. Mike is also highly active on social media, where he shares builds, jokes, and behind-the-scenes glimpses into his world. Unlike some former castmates, Mike never completely cut ties with Counts Customs. And although he may have frequently clashed with Danny Koker, Mike remains one of the most unforgettable personalities to ever roll through the Counts Customs garage. In the world of reality TV, characters come and go all the time. But Counting Cars wasn't built on fake drama or revolving door casting. It was built on loyalty, skill, and a shared love of machines. That's what made these exits feel different. Each of the employees Danny Koker parted ways with, whether it was due to betrayal, burnout, or a simple shift in direction, left a mark on the shop and the audience. Some fell into scandal. Others just faded quietly. But all of them remind us of one thing. Behind the roar of the engines and the gleam of the chrome, Counts Customs was always more than just a TV set. It was a real garage with real people, and when things fell apart, they did so for real reasons. Who is your favorite cast member on Counting Cars? Tell us in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen.